Okay, happens to be that tonight is the yurtzeit of the Lashem of Shlomo Eliashiv. He's actually his kever is in Har Zaysim. I don't know who it is. I actually met someone once who knows where it is, but I forgot who the person was I met. Who knows where it is? But he died about 1928, then somewhere between 25 and 28. A little bit different. I've seen different dates, but I think 28 is the one that's confirmed. And as has been pointed out, the Chazon Ish felt he was the last Makubal. The Chafetz Chaim met with him as well. He was based with his time, was extremely respected. And anybody who's learned his material, who has any background with this material, can see a very unique approach to Kabbalistic ideas. He, as opposed to others who complicated things or allowed things to remain complicated, that his idea was to synthesize and to clarify and make it more accessible. And he does a phenomenal job of doing that, and very often in a very elegant way. So anyhow, just in terms of the schus.
Is that the Sulam?
No, big difference.
Okay.
This is the big difference. That's the other side.
Right.
This is the Shlomo Eliashiv. Lashem happens to be the last Shabbos, in case you're paying attention, in Shul. We mentioned Lashem Shalom V'Achlama in Parshas Pukudei, right? And the other time we mentioned is in Parshat Tetzaveh. It's like the third row of the four rows, and the Kohen Gadol's the Choshen Mishpat that he wore, right? And the stones, Lashem Shavo V'Achlama are three stones. Actually saw the word Achlama today in Memphis Eretz. I took I missed my bus, so I actually took another 155 bus back from Trampiata to Memphis Eretz and take a taxi from there. In the end, I didn't really save anything in terms of money, and I definitely lost in terms of time. But fantastic tour of the houses in Memphis Eretz, beautiful homes and neighborhood. One of the streets was Achlama, right? And I forget which stone it is, but it's one of what's it called, amethyst? One of them is the amethyst. There's but anyway, you can look it up. Our captain of Living Torah, he explains which stones they are. And
are these precious stones or semi-precious?
Probably semi-precious stones.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Although I'm not sure.
It doesn't say ruby or diamond.
No, it's not those other stones.
Garnet
No. But one of them, it's a brilliant stone. It's a very bright stone. Gives off a lot of light. He chose the name because it has the letters, the first letters of his name. And if you look at the actual Leshem Sforim, the three dots are over, the shin of Leshem, and then the Leshem Shavo, the base of Shavo, and then the Ches. Because his father's name was Chaykel, I think it was Chaykel's father's name. Actually, it's right here, right? He was Shlomo ben Chaykel.
Where do you get the Rosh Hashanah? How do you get Leshem out of this?
Well, it's not the Rosh Hashanah, but what happens in Jewish authors, at least from authors, what they did was they chose a name that usually had the initials of their name in it, right? So he was Shlomo ben Chaykel, so you needed a shin, base, and a ches. So you have that in the three words Lashem Shema V'Chama, but happens to be that his yurtzeit usually falls in the week before or after that we read in the Torah Lashem Shema V'Chama, either the first time in Parshat Tetzaveh, because it can fluctuate, and even in a leap year, there's an extra Adar, right? It can end up being because the parsha gets spread apart, so you put Pekudei separately, so it can be actually in the week as well of his yurtzeit. And this happens to be this last Shabbos we read it, and this week is his yurtzeit. Tonight, the Chav Zayin of Adar. Anyhow, just.
So no, these are three stones that you're saying?
Yeah, those are Lashem Shabbat. I have to look up again. I forget what they were. I used to know what they were. But
my son used to sing a song like it.
If you have an English, they all sing it. They all know. Yeah, that's how you remember them. But if you look at their scroll, they tell you exactly what the stones are. I mean, any English translation will tell you what the actual stones are. Anyhow, but I just thought it'd be good to do a piece of his schus and honor the yurtzeit.
Once more up.
Not right now, thank you. This piece actually is just a continuation of a piece we did earlier, and that piece was the fact that the Jewish people did not leave Mitzrayim quickly and from after the 10th Makkah because they were holding a Mem Teshari Tumas. We pointed out back then that by the time Makkah's Bechoros took place, the Jewish people had completely left the Mem Teshari Tumah. They were elevated to the point of Nun Shari Kedusha, and therefore the reason they left, as Rabbi Shimon should be the last paragraph. Shar Hanun, right? Even if it's a machlokas, where there's even a 50th gate of impurity anyhow, but it doesn't make it. There's no nafkin in terms of losing it spiritually. 49th level would be sufficient, but there's a 50. There isn't a 50th level, so he says that even if you hold that there is a 50th level, still Shar Lomar Shezehu Kavana B'Mashkasav V'Lo Yichlu this Mameya, right? Even they would say you can't say pshat on that they could not stay any longer Mitzrayim. Shehu Kadei Shalo Yichnus L'Shar Nun Chas V'Shalom. Even those who hold as a 50th level would tell you the problem is not that they're going to sink to the 50th level and therefore they had to leave quickly. That's not the pshat. Yi'az B'Leil Rishon Shel Pesach, because the first day of Pesach in Mitzrayim Lo Hi Makom Od L'Shlius Hatum M'Klal Klal V'Klal, that by the time Makas B'Choros was taking place, there's no longer any room for Tumah to have any shlita, to have any control. Because as we see right there in the Psukim, that I was having this discussion with somebody the other day, this very point, I was trying to explain to him this idea because he was asking the question, why blood libels are dafka to do with matzah, right? There's almost all the blood libels have been through the generations that Jews use the blood of Goyish, Gentile children to make their matzah. That was the main blood libel all through the years in Europe and Russia. Right, and this, and he was asking the question, why dafka? That would be the focal point. There's so many other things that could pin upon us and use it as a blood libel, but that was one of the main things that used to bring him out this time of year to kill Jews and sound the alarms. Well, why dafka matzah? Where did this idea come from? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So where it come from? So you go back, to the idea that Makkah's Dam, the first Makkah, the plague of Dam, was to wake up to the Jewish people to the point that, to the idea that they're holding on the 40th level of spiritual impurity, which means you're basically physical, you're totally materialistic. There's almost no spiritual component. This week's Parsha, the Aleph, at the end of Vayikra, that transforms Vayikar into Vayikra, and therefore a person from somebody who randomly deals with the Kosh Baruch Hu in history, to being a person who's connected directly to Kosh Baruch Hu and has constant ongoing connection to him. The small little Aleph in Kabbalah means a tremendous amount. As is pointed out, the Aleph itself has built into it the gematria of, has the Vav and 2 Yuds, right, which is equal to 26, which is the Shem Avoya. So that represents the Neshama, right? So Makkah's Dam was to tell the Jewish people, this is what happens to somebody where the Aleph becomes so small it's almost non-existent. The point.
Aleph, say that again. How'd you get that?
Because the Aleph, if you look at the Aleph itself, there's a Vav, and there's a Yud above and a Yud below. Right? So the Yud 10 plus 10 plus the 6 is 26, which is the Gematria of Yud K Vav K. Right? So that Aleph always, the word Aleph itself comes like the word Aluf, which means a chief. Right? Always refers to Kosh Baruch Hu plus Aleph, of course, is 1. So it refers to Hashem. So therefore the Aleph always corresponds to the Neshama, and therefore it corresponds to the spiritual component of a human being. And when a person is pursuing Torah, doing mitzvahs and doing what they're supposed to do, the Aleph is being fed. The light comes down to feed the Aleph. The Aleph grows in size and transforms V'yikar into V'yikra. Because now you can communicate with the Kosh Baruch Hu. You cannot communicate with the Kosh Baruch Hu on the level of Memta Shaituma. It's not only that he doesn't want to talk to you, but more to do with the fact you can't even hear it. You're on a different frequency. You're just totally not able to see what's going on in the world and to connect to Kosh Baruch Hu and to talk to him. Because you're totally spaced out. You're in another dimension altogether. It's only to do with the physical world of materialism. So the point of all the Makkos was to build Klal Yisrael level by level to the point that you're just building the Aleph. The whole Geula process of an individual and of a nation depends upon the size of your Aleph. That's what it comes down to. When a person builds their Aleph, they naturally memela. I just saw today, in fact, that just working on this book, Drowning in Pshat, which is like really is what it's all about. And there's a Zohar that says, it took me a little while finding it, but the Zohar that says that Meskilim Yavinu, right? They'll understand, and then it brings a passage to Daniel that they'll give off light. Zohar Rakia. And Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Rashbi that the Sefer of yours, Klal Yisrael, comes from the side of Bina. That's why Meskilim Yavinu, they'll understand. And that's the level of Tshuva. and the Jewish people in the future will learn this, learn this sefer of yours, and because of it, this is the most important point of all, right? Because of it, they will go into Geula Barachamim. Now, it's an amazing thing. I mean, we're talking about Geula Barachamim, and the whole point of what we have to do to be able to achieve that. And here's a Befer Zohar say that, and no one knows this Zohar except for people who learn Kabbalah. It gets quoted once in a while, but who even pays attention? Who cares? That's the way people feel. Who cares? This is telling you what you have to do to be able to get, bring about a Geula Barachamim. We see when developing is not looking so safe right now. We've got Iran in the horizon, the West on our back, and the Palestinians over here. It's a very difficult time for the Jewish people. We need Rachamim, and this is telling you how to get it. The Zohar says, by learning the Zohar, you're going to get it. The Gra brings down in Kol HaTorah that this is what happens when Moshe speaks to Yeshua after the battle of Amalek. It says, "Speak b'Beznei Yeshua," and the gematria of Beznei, says the Gra, is the gematria of Sod, and therefore he says the only way to defeat Amalek at the end of days is going to be b'derech Sod. So I said that years ago. There's different ways of understanding that, but I'll tell you one thing for sure. The best way to understand it is that through the Zohar, you're getting information you don't get in the realm of Pshat. You don't get from the Gemara necessarily. You don't get from Midrashim necessarily. They all give you information and pieces of information that allows you to be able to focus a little bit on what's going on historically, but the Zohar gives you specific parameters. It's talking about the Chis and Mesim, talking about Yemos and Mashiach, Kibbutz Galius, possible framework for that, certain ideas to do with, the one day corresponds to 1,000 years, and therefore the Tzedas Tavara corresponds to this period of time. It's all there. It's all there. And you can see, and without that, what happens? You just extract that part of learning from people's life, and basically, and then of course the Leshem brings it down, but nobody, it's a remarkable thing that we've seen in the Leshem, how he brings down that Zohar about the period of time called Techis and Mason, when it's supposed to begin, which 14 years from today, which is remarkable, right? And it should be, like, bells should be going off, right? And people should be saying, what does this mean? How does it, what are the implications for today? And how does that fit into what's happening with the Middle East, and what's going with Iran and Persia? There's so many prophecies coming true in our generation that if we were really paying attention, waking up, we'd be going, wow, this is unbelievable. We're watching this thing take place before our very eyes. What do we have to do? What do we have to do? We don't do that, because we're drowning in Pshat. We're living in a realm of Pshat. We learn Gemaras, we learn Halachas, basically, but there's almost no information that's coming to us, even from the Gedolim. There's nothing coming to us that's telling us, this last Motzei Shabbos was the first thing that I heard from Rav Steinemann. He's speaking about the fact that so many people, all these Gedolim are ill. I mean, they're elderly, but they're also ill, basically. And he mentioned the threat from Persia and how dangerous the situation here is in Israel. That every single day we're living with threats, but Kosh Baruch Hu is keeping things at bay. It's a big miracle. And the response is, well, and you got a mispala, got a daven, which is very, very true, because as we mentioned before in the past, ma titzak alai. When God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, what are you davening to me for? The classic pshat is that, go do something, and the Zohar also understands that, but the Zohar understands it a little bit more deeply, and that is basically saying that tefillah is not going to work. This is not the place to daven because when you left Mitzrayim, right? When you left Mitzrayim, and you're on the way out, and you're running for your life, and the Egyptians were still back at home, and they hadn't saddled up their horses yet or their chariots to chase after you, and you davened that they shouldn't come after you. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu could perform a miracle where they change their mind, or plague breaks out and wipes them away, or there's a big thunderstorm where the price of donkey fuel goes up or horse fuel goes up, and they can't afford to go chase out. There's all kinds of ways, but derech teva to stop the Mitzrayim. So their tefillah is going to work. But when you get to the point where your back is against the wall, and the sea's over here, and the Egyptians are over there, and now the only way out is either to fight, which you're going to lose, or cross the Yam Suf and split the sea. It's such a phenomenal miracle that tefillah is not going to work anymore, because tefillah is a bakasha. Remember, we spoke about that. You're asking for that which you don't really deserve. If you deserve it, it's not really tefillah. It's basically saying, Kosh Baruch Hu, ante up. That's what Rashi says in Parshas V'eschanan, tzadikim could say to Kosh Baruch Hu, I have it coming to me for all the things I've done. V'eschanan, it's like they're the schinim, a free gift. But they don't have to do that. They like to act as if it's not coming to them, so therefore they daven anyhow. But that's tzadikim. The rest of us, basically, when we're making requests, it's a request. And so you have to be careful. If you're asking Kosh Baruch Hu for $1,000 to pay a bill that just came in, that's reasonable. That can happen, right? Or $500 or $200, that can happen. But you say to Kosh Baruch Hu, can I win the lottery for $300 million? Right? Yeah, it's possible. But that's a big schooz. That's a big thing to ask Kosh Baruch Hu to take your number out of all those millions of numbers of people who have bought tickets and make you the winner. That's a huge nace you're asking for right now. So you have to be very careful in terms of how far you go with your requests. If you need, you need. But still, and that's what Mati Sikalai means. But that's the way the Jewish people work. We won't take the situation seriously until the sirens go off and we're suspicious there's a bomb coming. A few weeks ago, there was an alarm that went off a siren that went off in Telstar. There was no warning. I don't know if it happened elsewhere, but it went off. Usually there's a warning. Either you get notices put up, or they tell you in the Kehilaton, or if it's a last minute thing, the guy would go driving through the street saying there's going to be a test. Nothing this time. Out of the blue, this thing went off basically, and we're all sitting. I was sitting there, It's like, is this it? Is this it? And all of a sudden, your skin starts to crawl. You get a little bit nervous, and do I take my computer into the miklat now? I can start working there, right? What do I got to do now? And that's the way Klal Yisrael works. We're always adapting. Nope, can always be worse. Well, who says it has to be? But that's off track. But the point is that basically every makkah that happened in Mitzrayim was to bring the Jewish people. Didn't even turn this on. Was to bring the Jewish people to a level of gilui, shechina, of connection to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, to transform them from the level of vayikar to vayikra. Right? That's the goal. From a intermittent connection to Hakadosh Baruch Hu to a 24/7 online connection to Hakadosh Baruch Hu at all times, to transform them from the level of dam to the level of adam in the end. So that's why Makas Dam is the first plague, Dafka, because that's the starting point. So the matzah, apparently, is not what people think it is. If we're not living Mitzrayim quickly because we're holding a Memtesh Sheri Tumas, then why are we living so quickly in the end? That's what the lesson deals with over here, right? So he mentions, and he says, Ela Kavana, Hu Lehefach, just the opposite, Ki Mishum Shehofia is a Kosh Baruch Hu, or Kishuso, Shal Yisrael, all Yisrael. So the Kosh Baruch Hu revealed his light to the Jewish people, Leil Seder, right? We've never experienced this in our entire lifetime, right? Like the Haggadah says, Shenigla Aleim Melech Malachim Kosh Baruch Hu, Kosh Baruch himself revealed Anivalo Saraf, Anivalo Malach. He himself carried out Makis Bechoros. It's a phenomenal gilui of light. Therefore, Elu Hayun is a kvu od rege echad b'Mitzrayim. The problem was not the Jewish people would be batal, but rather the Sitra Achra, the forces of evil, tumah, impurity, they would have been cancelled out because the light was getting stronger and stronger. It's like spritzing down a hospital room with disinfectant. The more you put on, the more the bacteria is in danger, not the people who are inside the room in the end. That's what's going on. And so what's the problem with that? So here's the punchline. So therefore, if we had cancelled out this drachra by cancelling out the mitzrim, so then we would have lost the potential for evil, and therefore we would have lost bechira. But that's exactly what has to happen eventually. So we can explain later on. But that's in the Yemos HaMashiach, which this could have been, but it was the beginning of history. And the problem was, he says, we still require bechira because we never made the choice to leave Ganuz. That was never a choice that we made. It was a choice that was imposed upon us. Because Baruch Hu began Makas Dam because he had a promise to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, not because we cried out. We weren't crying out, we were adapting, right, to the situation on an ongoing basis. Because Baruch Hu forced us to call out to him by making a par who bathed in Jewish blood, the blood of babies, in order to make us to finally call to Hashem, so he could finally bring the gulas. We had some kind of participation, but it was all stimulated from above. Because Baruch Hu was the one who made it happen. So therefore, then what's the point of the matzah? So the matzah is not the celebration of the geula, because that would have been bread. Instead, we would have stayed in Mitzrayim longer, watched the demise. Tough word to get out there. Watch the demise of the Mitzrayim, and then not at the Rasha, and have bread instead. The matzah is because we had to save the koiches of tumah, of evil, to maintain bechir, because we still have to make choices. So therefore the matzah is a reminder of the fact that A, we have to separate from the Mitzrayim, and B, that we're in Galus all this time to finally make the choice to leave Galus. To make the choice that has not been made for over 3,320 some odd years at this point in time. So therefore the blood libels make sense. Because the blood libels come along and they say, yeah, you're forgetting what the whole point of the matzah was. The story of the matzah began with the blood. Right? We began with the blood back in Mitzrayim to tell us that's where we're holding a Memta Shari Tuma, that go finish the job of Geula and you'll be on the level of Adam. So by having blood libel historically centered around the idea of matzahs, it's another way of saying Kosh Baruch Hu is like putting back in Mitzrayim, as he said he would do if we didn't keep things on track. He'd bring us back there in some level, and the blood libel is a way of reminding us that we're back on the level of Dam again. We're acting too materialistic, we're acting too much like the Gentiles around us, and it's coming back on our face, vis-a-vis the matzah. That's the perfect semel and symbol of what should be in terms of making the point, especially this time of year. So
in France, the tragedy happened.
Yeah.
So what's the response of the Jewish leaders in France? They said, we have to build more Jewish institutions in France.
Of course, and everybody else at Foxman too, the ADL basically. Nobody's focused on what has to happen at this point in time. Nobody, and it's always that way in the end. They'll write their senators, they'll write their congressmen, they'll write their leaders. There'll be all kinds of apologies, the whole thing basically, and then the situation just gets worse and get worse and gets worse, and nobody will finally realize. It's like what happened, to Herzl. He no one thought about Israel. So the situation got so what's the word? He came to the realization we can't live amongst the Gentiles. We have to be on our own someplace else. We have to have a Jewish place, Jewish homeland, because we're never going to be accepted amongst the nations of the world. That whole situation, the Dreyfus affair was going historically, woke him up to that reality. Before that, he didn't see it. As we said before, one of the first options was to convert to Christianity. He dropped that because it's not going to work anyhow, right? The same thing later on is that the Holocaust again forced us to realize we can't live amongst the nations, but we go right back anyhow. We go right back anyhow, and we bet ourselves, and then we make ourselves comfortable. I just listened to someone in shul tonight. I had to really control myself because it wasn't my conversation. But he's leaving. He's going back to Chutzlaritz, and someone said to him, "You're coming back," and he said, in kind of drawn, it's not my plan to come back. It's not my plan to come back. And he said, "Why should I come back?" And I wanted to run home and get one of these manuals and say, just take this home with you. Read it before you go. But it's like you forget when you're in the whole Geula mode, and you can see what's going historically, so it's like real to you. But people are outside of it. They're like literally with all this going on around them, they are outside of it. And that's exactly what it means to drown a pshat. Because in the level of pshat, you don't see anything. You don't really see very much what's going on. Even though it's happening, it's taking place, people talk about it, it doesn't impact you. But when you have sod to put things in perspective and make you understand there's a time frame and what the time frame actually is, it gives you a backdrop. And then all of a sudden everything shows up. It's like a special paint that on a certain material doesn't show up. You splash water, and all of a sudden, boom, it starts to show up all of a sudden. That's what sod actually does. So that's what that paragraph. That paragraph ends off the discussion.
So we're saying that then the blood libels are really a manifestation of our not making the proactive choice of leaving. It was forced upon us, and as a result of that, we never having made the choice.
And we've even reversed whatever there is to reverse. But we have basically allowed ourselves to integrate amongst the Gentile population. We're unfulfilling the reason why Hashem took us out of Egypt. We're undoing it. So therefore, Kosh Baruch Hu says, you want to undo it? So they come back in your face again later on. And the blood libels dafka around the matzah. Use matzah as the reason. It's ludicrous. The whole concept is completely ludicrous.
It's like reminding them very subtly of the.
Yeah.
It's reminding them very subtly of the entire original Pesach experience in Mitzvah.
Right.
It's like in their face.
Exactly. So he finished off this paragraph by saying, he says, "V'hu mashu kasef v'tichazek Mitzrayim ala am." So therefore, the Mitzrayim, they pushed the Jewish people, the Meher l'shacham min haaretz, to send them out from the land like Hashem promised. We're all dead men over here, right? So that clearly shows that the koiches of this of tumah, of impurity, was weak on Leil Seder, not the other way around, like that we understand that. And it's amazing. I was talking to somebody trying to explain this point, bring all the riots and this whole, and a photocopy of the page and bring it in, but how difficult it is for people to accept that after years of being weaned on concepts like we left Mitzrayim quickly because we were holding a Mem Teshari Tumah and we had to get it so quickly, and people are so absorbed in that idea that even you bring sources from the Torah itself that shows exactly, and people have to say, what does this look like? When you hear the Mitzrayim throw them out and say they were all dead people, is Koiches Tumah strong or Koiches Tumah weak? They have to be weak. Everyone says that. So then how can you be a Mem Teshari Tumah? How can you have a Gilu of Hashem on Leil Seder if you're holding a Mem Teshari Tumah? And everyone says, you're right, but still, it's hard for people to accept, and that's why we're still in Galus, because people, they understand the meaning of the matzah. So he continues. This is the part we did not do. Noda who b'divrei harizal b'kavanas Pesach ki b'leil rishon shel Pesach hinei nishtanu sidrei bereshis v'niskadlu hazun b'pam echad. Okay, there's a little Kabbalah this part. We'll just go through a little fastish, but the basic idea. Take your time. You got time for it? Okay.
I understand that.
So basically, the way the Galus works, I don't know how far we'll get with this, but we have 2 Mondays. We have another Monday coming up. Right, the way the Galus works is that it's all a function of light. It's all just like, for example, health is the same way, right? If you don't drink enough water, you dehydrate, and a person can come close to death and even die from in the end, right? Put the water back in, and the body gets its refreshment. And a person is able to survive and do better. So the way that the Galus works, and Gula works, is that the light from Shemayim either flows in. If it flows in the proper amount, there's going to be Geula, because wherever the light goes, evil is gone. You can't have evil and lights. The light of Hashem, when it gets a certain intensity, by definition, evil is going to be destroyed. So as long as the light's coming in, then basically the redemption is going to take place, and the light's going to be held back. Then you're going to have Galus instead, Hester Panim, all things that come along with it. So what's supposed to happen is that there are 10 spheres. The upper 3 spheres of Keser, Chachma, Bina, they're always mitukam. They always have their light. They're never going to be without it. We can't even affect them. We can't even touch them. Our mitzvahs are very, don't make a difference to them. Basically, only indirectly, in as much as that we will be denied their light if we're not zoichet, if we don't merit it in the end. It's the 6 spheres, and really the 7th of Malchus as well. It's the 6 spheres of Chesed, Gevur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod that are the difference to all of history. They correspond to our 6 millennia. They basically are the ones that are mashpia. They have the impact on our world, and we affect them. That the technical Kabbalistic term from the Zer Ampin, of Arach Ampin at the very top of the system. Zer Ampin means like small nose because Arachim is long nose because it's very patient. It doesn't get angry. Zer Ampin corresponds to these 6 spheres. So basically, the idea is that these 6 spheres have 6 spheres, but they're supposed to have 10 each. They're supposed to, and that's probably another reason for the 60 as well. Okay, but they're supposed to have 10 each. In times of Geula, they have 10 each. In times of Geula, all the lights that are supposed to be shining are on, and therefore evil is eradicated, and everything falls into place the way it's supposed to. How do they get all their light? So what's supposed to happen, so for example, is that when you're doing Torah mitzvahs, and you learn Torah, you perform mitzvahs, you have good midas, and not just you, but your neighbor, and your neighbor's neighbor, and everybody around you is doing that. Basically, the whole world obviously is becoming a better place. That draws down light from the upper 3 spheres, first to Keser, to Chachma, to Chachma, to Bina, and Bina gives over its light to the 6 spheres of Zer Ampin. They enlarge, so to speak, because there's light in their, in all their parts, and Memela, automatically there's redemption. And that's supposed to be a function of our good deeds, of our learning Torah and our performing mitzvahs. That's what's supposed to happen. Unfortunately, it never does. Unfortunately, we never rise to the occasion. On a personal level, maybe perhaps, maybe in Shlomo Melch's time, a little bit to some degree, basically, but it didn't happen in Mitzrayim. I guess it happened kind of in Bavel a bit with Mordechai getting everyone to fast and make the Mesiras Nefesh, right? Didn't really happen so much in Hanukkah time, except through Matasian and his group. And historically, we're still in Galus to this very day. That's the idea. The idea is that we're supposed to draw the light down. However, what happened instead, Akash Baruch Hu did it for us because it was an imperative. There was an historical imperative that we had to leave Mitzrayim by a certain time, either because of the fact that we're almost completely assimilated, and we had to survive because Hashem promised that we would, right? Or if we did the 400 years, because that's the way history had to go, right? But we didn't do it properly, so therefore Akash Baruch Hu himself did as it says. He changed the Seder of Bereshis, Mizgadlu, Hazun, B'pamachad, right? So rather than build up towards it, Hashem himself sent light down and caused those 6 spheres to expand and become in their gula format, right? So shalosh b'seder medregas klal yishlamu kol b'hamuchin b'gavlu sheni shahamuchin the abba ve'ima align. These are all Kabbalistic terms. I'll explain in a second. V'henis alu az kol Yisrael gamkein. The point he's making over here is that rather than from the bottom up, the way it's supposed to happen, that we do our mitzvah, we learn our Torah, we draw the light down, and we build the redemption piece by piece, level by level. Hashem just threw it down, basically. He just brought the light down, sent the light down, elevated the entire world, and with that went the Jewish people. We also became elevated as a result. It was a matana from Hashem. That's why we drop off the next day. You have to finish the Afikomen by Chatzot, because basically by Chatzot, that's when Hashem he withdraws the light. The light comes into the world. The moment the 3 stars come up by Baruch Hu, the light is given to the Jewish people as a gift. You only do the Haggadah, not because you're drawing down the light. Other times in life, all week long, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, whatever mitzvahs you're doing, the mitzvahs are designed to draw down the light. Lulav and Esrog, you're drawing down the light. The Hakafas, you're drawing down the light, that you can have access to it. Leil Seder is the one time a year you don't have to draw down the light. The light comes down as a gift. It did in Mitzrayim. It does every Leil Seder from that point onwards. So then what's the Haggadah? Right? This long, complicated evening of Haggadah, which looks like you're doing exactly to draw the light down. So Leshem explains that's only to make sure you're in the right place at the right time and the light comes down. That you're focused on the right thing at the right time when the light comes down. Because you don't want to be like, it's like when the guy comes knocking at your door to give you $500 and you're in the bathroom at that time. It's like, you don't want to be missing the opportunity to be marvich, your ruchnius. So the Leil Seder, from the time that the 3 stars come out, until Chatzot, that's when the light comes out. By Chatzot, Akash Baruch Hu begins to withdraw that light and take it back again. That's why the Jewish people go right back to where they were. They left B'yad Ramah, but the next day they're right back to where they were spiritually, which is by Yam Suf, they're already complaining again. And kvetching, no bitochon amuna. They totally forget the experience of Leil Seder because Akash Baruch Hu took the light back. We didn't build it up. So Akash Baruch Hu, he gave to them then, and he gives it to us every Leil Seder as well. And it says, the Tarbi v'tzidali, right? That I increased it and I made it larger. Akash Baruch Hu says, Nasu az kebriya chadasha, and the creation itself, plus the Jewish people, became like a brand new creation. Ve'iru kulam be'or panei melachim, and they all gave off light, in the ultimate way. Leil Seder, we had this fantastic, Hadras Panim that Akash Baruch Hu put into the world and the Jewish people.
So why is it then that we have to finish the matzah by Chatzos? Why shouldn't we? By what we're saying then, if Akash Baruch Hu brought in that light, and if we're eating the matzah, couldn't we be extending the light by delaying eating the final matzah?
Theoretically, yes, and that's really is what should happen. You should start rebuilding it, but the rebuilding basically I think starts to begin by the next day, or by daylight the next day. That's why the Jewish people actually left the next morning, right? The light lasts until the night before, until the Gilui, but they actually left Mitzrayim the next morning. So, like, we begin to rebuild it the following day. That's what it seems to be. But you're right. There's no, you can keep eating matzah, and you certainly can. And that's probably one of the reasons why they did do exactly that. That's because a mitzvah of in Marbe, the Shavach Hakadosh Baruch and the Seaport Tzitz Mitzrayim, and people do like Rabbi Akiva and all these gedolim the entire night because it's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to be mamshich the light to keep it down. Right. To keep it until the time came to say Shema, right? What's the Shema? Right, the Shema basically represents the ability to that you're now connected to Akash Baruch Hu In daylight, it's like the next day has begun, but you're holding the level of the recognition of the Kosh Baruch Hu in history, right? So that's what that's what the Haggadah Dafka says. Until they came and told them it's time for Kriya Shema. So they actually were able to connect them the night before or the next morning without a segue. They weren't. There was no hafsakah. So as a result of that, you chap. You get, if you can do the same thing as well, you're going to get the same thing.
I see, but what you're saying essentially, though, that the Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us that gift only until Chatzos, is what you're saying.
After that, you're doing it on your own, right? You'll be mamshech on your own, which is what you're supposed to do, yeah.
So that Hashem took them out at the very last, one extra second, they would have been over.
Yeah, that was the first part of the show. Yeah. No, so that's only before Makkah is done. Before Makkah is done, that was the case. If Kosh Baruch had not begun the plagues when he did, then we would have been in that situation you're talking about. But once the Makkah began, every Makkah was like a pill. It was a refuah. It was a gil of Kosh Baruch Hu and a bil Klal Yisrael. So by Leil Seder, there was no longer any need to leave quickly anymore. We only left quickly, he says, in order to save the koiches of Tumah. Because if we stayed there any longer, the light would have kept coming in, and that would have destroyed all evil, and that would have taken away all free will.
Not a bad thing.
An excellent thing when you deserve it.
No, but that's the point. The fact is, we didn't deserve it because
Right.
we didn't make it. We didn't make the choice.
Well, by the
to
way,
leave,
he says that, and he will say at the end of history it's going to be exactly the same thing. The Gemara also says that we will not deserve it. The only difference is going to be we'll have gone through the Arba Galios already. We'll have paid the price of admission. See, back here we hadn't paid yet. We hadn't done anything yet. But we were in Mitzrayim for 209 years, and there was still a lot to accomplish historically. And if we had made the choice to leave Mitzrayim as we were supposed to, then that would have taken care of whatever had to happen historically. We didn't. We had to go out and have Bechira. But the truth is the clock was ticking. They could have chosen any point in time. If the 1/5 that left with Moshe Rabbeinu had chosen the Geula, that would have brought Yemos Mashiach. Just like it said, the Meraglim rejecting Yisrael is the exact same idea as not choosing the Geula. Because to reject Yisrael is to reject Geula as well, not make that choice. So at any point in time in the 40 years, they could have chosen Geula. They didn't do it. They got Yisrael, so they still have problems. So from that point on, any time during the 850 years into the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, they also could have chosen it. It didn't happen. So now we're thousands of years later, and we still haven't chosen it at this very point in time.
So who says it will never change? Will never make the
Gra and the Arizal seem to say that we're just not going to get it. I mean, individuals will probably do it, but the masses just they don't get it. You see, we just don't see what's going on. We don't pay attention.
So that's the two ways that you mentioned about bringing the
Achishena B'ita, yeah.
So it will have to happen.
Achishena is to choose it, and B'ita is it's imposed upon us.
So what they're essentially saying is that's the way it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to reach the end. Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to reach the end of his rope. That's it. I've had enough.
He's reaching our rope.
right.
Yeah, his rope is a lot longer. Yeah. But so that's what he's saying. It says Manasseh calls that Hema Mala.
His patience. I didn't mean.
Right. So he says Manasseh calls that Hema Mala, Hema Mata, Ume'ain Tikkun Hasid. And the Kodesh Baruch Hu set it up like it was already the future redemption. He created the reality that's eventually going to be. Kedei.
Makat Bechorah was at midnight.
Right.
The Egyptians were going crazy at the time to leave.
Right, exactly.
Oh, so they're smoking their cigars and saying, no, we're going to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. They're playing games. What? Oh, yeah, we're going. Don't worry, right? They're pushing them out. They're throwing them out. That's what Hashem said Moshe Rabbeinu in Parshas Shmos. He says, "Why? You don't see what's going on over here? Believe me, when the time comes to go out, they're going to throw you out. Right now, they're increasing the slavery. But when it comes later on, they're not going to say you can go. They're going to throw you out as fast as they possibly can because the situation will be so dire for them. And the Jews are going, no, we're making Korban Pesach right now. We got things to do. Pack the kids,
Was it you said that if the Egyptians hadn't thrown out, that they wouldn't have left? I don't know. Somewhere I read it. I don't know.
Well, that's basically the truth. If we had not been thrown out, probably, unless Kodesh Baruch Hu commanded it and said you got to go anyhow. But yeah, if we hadn't been thrown out, we wouldn't have left. The 4/5 didn't. They didn't. It was going well for us.
No, but even after the Seder.
Yeah, I'm saying it was going. We were totally in control. Leil Seder, the tables had turned completely. Paro is in his pajamas, going through the streets, looking for Moshe. Where do they live? Tell them to go. We've had enough of this already, right? So we were in control. We were, why leave? The party was going well for us at that point in time. We had to leave because Moshe says time to go.
Watch him suffer. Watch him suffer.
Yeah, exactly. Take over, go be,
Enjoy it,
even go back and make some fun of him at the same time. Why not? A lot of slavery. So he says, why did he do it? Kedei la'aros l'Yisrael shehu yizbok shemo chafetz behem liyod v'sguluso u'merov tuv atzatan lehem. So why did Kosh Baruch Hu, fake the gula, so to speak, bring about it, as a gift as opposed to us earning it? Because he wanted us to understand how much he wants us to be as Am Segula, how much he's prepared to turn the world upside down on its head, history upside down on its head, because he wants us to be his treasured nation. And that's going to be the source of the miracles at the end of history as well, in our time. What was going to happen, we can see it's building towards, let's take stock. We're building towards a major miracle. You see what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing over here. If you're a believer in the Shkacha Pratis in history, you can see what's happening. We're being pushed once again. This is no different than Yam Suf. Exactly the same thing. Our backs are against the wall. We didn't daven when we should have davened. Back, when it was easier. We didn't go into Iran when it was easier. We didn't, the Lebanese war of 57, 66 could have easily, spilled over to Syria and Iran at a time that was still convenient to bring about a war like that. Omer chickened out, back down, whatever, historical. But the bottom line is, here we are once again in a situation where the enemy is clearly there, ready to pounce upon us, only being held back by a pillar of fire. And that's basically what Rav Steinman said. He said that every day we're living with terrible threats. The only reason we're so safe is Hashem is protecting us. Not because, who's holding them at bay? The IDF. Our nuclear deterrent? They don't care about life. They send them in to go blow us up. As long as Amalek says, as long as we get the Jews to suffer along the way, we'll suffer too. We don't care. Whatever. They got so many of them. We could never nuke them fast enough to blow them up. We would be in the end of the day, we'd be the sufferers. Right? So it's an absolute miracle taking place on an ongoing basis. So that's what he was saying. And likewise as well, because Baruch Hu, our backs, he's setting up a situation where basically, our backs are to the sea and we're facing the enemy. Literally, our backs are to the sea. We get the Mediterranean over here. Over there is Iran. All the Arab nations around us. Who knows where Syria is going to spill over at some point in time, where that's going at this point. Right now it's a bracha, in as much as it's distracting the Arabs away from the Jewish people. I mean, this whole thing is also absolutely remarkable, the way they were distracted away from us. Was going with Arab uprisings and all that, in Egypt is taking place. For the time being, we never know what's going to go next, what's going to happen next. And they're so close to getting the bomb. And right now it's coming down to whether Netanyahu will go ahead, because apparently, from what I read, that the Israelis only have bunker busters that can go a certain depth. And that's what it means. They have to attack right now this window of opportunity, because if the Iranians move it deeper down, then we can't get to them anymore. But the Americans still can. The Americans still can. They have bunker busters that are stronger, more powerful, that can reach down into the depths of where these things are supposed to go. But that means now we have to be dependent upon Obama to decide to go ahead and fight the war that we didn't fight in the first place. So really, we're copying on a hard rock on a wall. Once again, we're in this mamash situation of Yam Suf all over again today in technical terms. The enemy's over there, our back is to the wall, and we have no physical solution. No matter what BB says about how we can, our destinies in our own hands, it's not really. Otherwise, by now, they would have done something about the situation. The papers, CNN, the whole world's talking war right now. About and the consequences of Israel going ahead and actually going and bombing Iran. And that's the whole. What does this mean to us? What's this supposed to mean to us in the end? The whole world's focusing on this. But what are we doing? What are we doing? It's Yonah all over again. That's the Jewish people. It's Yonah all over again. They're on deck. All the Gentiles are screaming and hollering and doing their thing because they feel war. And what are we doing?
Sleeping.
We're sleeping downstairs. We're up and down.
How do you same thing in the Megillah?
Yeah. How do you sleep in a situation like that?
That's sleeping.
Yeah. How do you sleep in a situation like that? How can you sleep when the ship is like going up and down and back and forth? We do it anyhow, right? And therefore, we don't bring about the gula malamata lamala. like it's supposed to happen, and therefore Kosh Baruch has to do it Lamala Lamata. But whenever he does Lamala Lamata, when he triggers the whole thing, it's like poker. It always goes to the last card. It always goes right down to, and because whatever you don't pay for with Bituchon Amunah up front, you have to pay for it